watching. I'm not going to take a lot of time introducing Ken. He's uh, ingrained into the community now after being here for almost 5 years, coming back home, so to speak. He is our sixth president of Lewis and Clark Community College, and he came to us from Seward County Community College in Liberal, Kansas, where he was the president for 5 years. He has decades of experience in executive leadership and faculty roles at small community colleges and large colleges and universities in urban, suburban, and rural communities. With that, Ken Trzaska is going to let us know what's going on campus and maybe off campus. Ken? I think you're muted.
That might help. I had a riveting couple of sentences there that now I have to repeat. So no, I wanted to say thank you, John. Thank you to the Riverbank Growth Association for all that you do in our community. I mean, I think, in essence, the work we all do is about just making connections with each other and strengthening the community. As John said, I've been here just under 5 years, and my running joke is hence the hair loss. However, I am extremely excited, probably more than ever before, about the future of Lewis and Clark, the future of our community, just the future of education in general. I think what you'll see today is really a reflection of that energy, excitement, commitment by all of us on the campus. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to start and really frame the presentation around our four key directions. And these really are the guiding principles that we focus on each and every day. It allows us to keep centered on what's most important at the college, and also allows us to measure and understand what's working and what's not working. And when things aren't working, which is okay, we try to really embrace those vulnerabilities as an institution and address them and then move forward. So these are the four areas that probably about 3.5, 4 years ago, we started some real, focused work on shaping a strategic plan for the institution that was ultimately grounded in the student experience. How do we make sure that every student that comes to Lewis and Clark has what's been framed as a remarkable experience, that they're able to come here, get done what they want to get done, and then move on to that next level. And we help them throughout that process and even beyond that process. When they go on to a university or into the workforce, they still have a connection back to Lewis and Clark. It's that saying, once a trailblazer, always a trailblazer. So I'll talk a little bit about what's happening across the enrollment and retention focus, what's happening across our program and curriculum development, what's happening across our internal and external stakeholder engagement, and then also talk a little bit about what's happening on the data and technology transformation side. The fourth key direction is really our newest key direction. We did some change last year and felt that it was really critical to invest more deliberately and with a clearer focus around data and technology, because that, as we all know, underpins pretty much everything that we do. So with that being said, let me just jump in. There's always the question, okay, we can be doing 100,000 great things, but it ultimately comes down to the numbers in terms of how the college is performing. We've seen the last 3 years growth year over year in enrollment and in billable credit hours. This is a snapshot of recent data. So fall to fall, between 23 and 24, we saw an increase in headcount by about 8% and our billable credit hours by a little over 1%. Just this week, we learned on the 14th of February, which is our 10th day. This is a reporting date that we end up kicking this data out to the Illinois Community College Board, that our headcount was up 7.24% and billable credit hours, I think, landed at just about 1.5% spring over spring. The other part of this, too, is what we implemented, and I was going to allude to this later as well, but we've implemented dashboards, and these are public dashboards. So anybody on the call or in the community would have access to, just if it's, you have nothing to do on a Saturday afternoon and you're interested in what's happening at Lewis and Clark from a numbers perspective, you can see what the numbers look like around enrollment, around financials. Part of this is just continuing to sort of strengthen the transparency, not only with the community, but also with our internal stakeholders, which is every single one of our team members and, of course, every single one of our students. So some really good things are happening at Lewis and Clark when it comes to enrollment, but this just doesn't happen in spite of being Lewis and Clark. This is really a testament to the amazing work happening across Key Direction 1, which is really focused on growing opportunities where students can see access to programs that they perhaps didn't see access to in the past. Looking at retention, sort of the average retention across the country is pretty low. I mean, universities lingers around 30%, community colleges, I mean, it's anywhere from 40 to 60%. And if you think about that in the context of how much effort we put into bringing students to Lewis and Clark, and we start with 100 students and we only at the end of the year keep, say, 60 or 70 of those students, there's a continuous effort to try to strengthen advising, strengthen mentoring, strengthen sort of the coaching, essentially, that goes along with the work that we all do. How do we make sure that students stay on campus and they finish what it is that they started? So really good work going on here. A couple of highlights in terms of what is influencing some of this is, across the key directions, we're really we're focused on recruitment advising, the persistence and enrollment and marketing. The persistence piece is really students sort of persisting in theory through their program. A lot of times we might see a student start a program and then after the fall semester, they drop out. So that persistence between fall and spring, between spring and fall, and of course, semester to semester is very, very important. The advising piece is also really, really critical. We're trying to engage faculty at a deeper level there, but also just in general, the advising model to where students understand what it is they need to be doing to finish their program and what that sort of long-term plan looks like for them. And then enrollment and marketing. We've put a lot of effort around marketing. Many of you probably saw, I'm kind of jumping a little bit here, but you may have seen the My Keith Teague promotion. That actually won some national awards, which was really awesome. We're now doing 2.0 of that, where we're involving other programs. And also there is some planning to engage some of our other alumni from the Monty years, as well as some of our other alum that live outside of the area who have really gone on to do some remarkable things following Lewis and Clark's experience. And then, of course, just the resources that we wrap around the student experience. And so that's really what number 2 there is alluding to. A couple of other things. We have and sorry, that's a little bit kind of funky to look at. I'll change the color on that later. But the Student Ambassador Program is really an opportunity for us to help develop the next generation of student leaders. We have amazing students on our campus, and oftentimes you'll have students that emerge as leaders and, sort of the natural born leaders. So these are the individuals that are student ambassadors that help us with recruitment, help us mentor other students on campus, really are kind of the point individuals, and a lot of times the liaisons sometimes between the administration, the faculty, and the student, especially if you have students that are a bit, nervous maybe to go talk directly to their faculty member or to go talk to their advisor. These ambassadors are really ingrained throughout the culture. The other thing that we're trying to do is keep our finger on the pulse of what the expectations are of our students. And I'll talk a little bit about this in the next key direction as it relates to competency-based education and some of the agility that we're building into our programs. But ultimately, what do students want when it comes to advising? What do they want in terms of once we get them into a program, what are those expectations in terms of supporting them as they move throughout the institutional experience? There's some other things happening in terms of our faculty and continuing to keep our faculty at the top of their game. I mean, we have remarkable faculty as well, but as the dynamic of education changes, the dynamic of the work changes. And so how do we continue to support them through the advising model, through the student support systems, to make sure that they are having the tools and really the support systems they need? The other piece is listening to our students. We had a dinner that we had to cancel the other night, but we try to do this a couple of times a year where we have a board student dinner that I'm involved in as well, where we just hear directly from the students. What's working, what's not working, what are some things that we could be doing better to support them. Most of the time, that's like pretty positive stuff. But at the same time, sometimes there are, things that the students bring up that concern them or that they really want us to sort of address. And that gives also the board an opportunity to sit at a table with board members and students and just sort of have those conversations in an open and formal way with an action being taken by the team. And then, artificial intelligence, that is a big one. And we just implemented a policy yesterday. We have an AI mover team, which is sort of how we label our teams, mover in the sense that we're trying to move initiatives forward and not just sort of have a committee meeting or two, but actually having an action-oriented team. So we've developed a sort of a process and guidelines for the team related to how do we dance with AI? How do we leverage AI as a tool and something to complement the work rather than something that is this scary thing that could really influence, the integrity of our work. So that's been really, really powerful. And we're going to continue to grow and sort of evolve with AI. And actually, at the end of the presentation, you'll see we have a mini AI summit in May that is an extension of our State of Trailblazer Nation that everybody would be invited to learn about best practices, what's happening in the classroom, outside the classroom, what's happening in industry as it relates to AI. So a couple of just quick highlights there. Key direction 2 is the one that's focused on program and curriculum development. And as many of you have probably heard me say in other presentations, I do feel this is probably one of the most interesting yet exciting times in education because we have to change. And, I'm really proud to say that Lewis and Clark is leading the way across the state when it comes to competency-based education. This is something actually 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago when I arrived, I talked about even when I interviewed that, if we're really going to start thinking about access in a different way and making sure that we remain relevant to our students and relevant to the community, relevant to our community partners that are really looking to us for more flexibility in how we can serve their needs. Competency-based education is a direction that we could take. So at the current moment, we have our welding program, which has, quite frankly, about tripled in size since competency-based was implemented. We are finishing up our child development program. That is going to be approved by the Higher Learning Commission, deposited for approval, I should say, in March. That will roll out in the fall. And then something that is unique only to Lewis and Clark, and other schools are now really curious as to how we're doing this, is and it's not an education bundle, it's a general education bundle. So sorry on the grammatical stuff there. But general education bundle is really a lot of our gen ed courses are going to be bundled together, and a student, whether you're a traditional student, which is typically your 18 to 24-year-old, or your non-traditional student, which is, probably all of us on this call would be considered a non-traditional student, you're able to navigate through psychology, math, English, literature, kind of on your own terms, kind of moving in and out of mastering competencies, ultimately creating a credential that is your gen ed credential. This could be a really powerful tool for Lewis and Clark, not only to attract new populations of students, but also to support this sort of traditional student population that is really looking for more agility in how they move through programs. My sort of radical statement on this, so to speak, is I really believe that the credit hour will be something of the past sooner than later. The 16-week semester is something already kind of dwindling away. I mean, you see a lot of abbreviated semesters, 8-week late start courses, short-term courses. But in terms of creating the environment where a student can really navigate through a program on their own terms, I often liken it to the highway, where you have kind of the fast lane, the passing lane, the slow lane, and giving students the ability to sort of move across those lanes, move at the pace that they want based on the circumstances that they are sort of addressing within their life. And then, perhaps a student has to pull over, put on their blinkers for a semester because some things have happened in their life, but then they can get right on that highway again and pick up where they left off. The concept that really refers to is sort of banking of your credits. So, a student can pause and get back going. But this we feel is going to continue to allow Lewis and Clark to remain relevant, but also to remain highly competitive in an educational environment that is frankly becoming much more competitive in terms of the flexibility and the agility that we're seeing from private universities, from universities themselves, and then also from just in general earning credentials. I mean, a lot of times you can go, LinkedIn, Google, Microsoft are now offering, for the most part, free credentialing, which a lot of times industry is saying, listen, we want this IT credential. The person masters those credentials, and then they get that job or get that promotion. Subscription pay, very similar to what we see kind of out there in the real world of Netflix and Hulu's and all those things where you sort of pay as you go. You pay, you can get through as much as you want based on that amount. And then if you need more time, you purchase more time. This provides another level of agility as well. A couple of other programs that are being completed as we speak is sheet metal. This is in alignment with companies like VLind and some others in the area that are asking us for specific programs. This is a competency-based education program. So it's not like, you need to be on campus for a semester or two. This is one of those programs that really is grounded in competency. So as you master competency, you move forward. And then, of course, IT. Loosely, we're starting to kind of have a conversation with SIUE in terms of possibly a CBE to CBE partnership around information technology and around cybersecurity. Probably one of the more exciting highlights here is the avionics program. Last year, we started to explore avionics with local industry, particularly Gulfstream and Westar. And in response to that, we started some work around developing avionics. And to date, we've earned about $800,000 in grants and support to develop an avionics program there's some extensions to that, such as metallurgy, which also link into other industries. But this is really meeting a demand in that industry to create opportunities for folks to develop and to take basically jobs that are out there that are not being able to be filled in the current environment. There's some other things I didn't put on the slides, but around the healthcare industry, looking at more short-term certificates around healthcare, things like radiology, really expanding, just a number of things on the healthcare side that allow us to help the Alton Memorials, other healthcare industry partners in the area to meet needs that they have. A lot of those are entry level or mid-level. And it's interesting, and just having a conversation the other day at Alton Memorial Hospital is, those industries are also competing with, this is going to sound perhaps a little crazy, but just service jobs or retail jobs or jobs at McDonald's that are paying a lot better now. So if I want to be a respiratory therapist, and that's pretty difficult work, and it's $30 an hour, I'm getting $35 an hour at Costco, and so what do you want to do? And this is a real issue. So we're trying to find ways in which we can create not just pathways into these industries like healthcare or manufacturing, but how do we retain those employees into these jobs? So there could be a succession planning opportunity or a growth sort of pathway for these employees. You get into this starting job, but within 2 years, you can move up to this level or up to this level. So those are some things that we're also trying to help our industry partners with kind of on the back end to support some of the work that they're trying to accomplish as well. KD3 is kind of the fun and exciting key direction, as everyone likes to call it. This is really focused on kind of strengthening the partnerships outside the college, but also strengthening the partnerships inside the college, across departments, across team members. I mean, we're a large organization, just under probably about 500 team members, full-time, part-time. And so keeping everybody connected, keeping everybody focused, even around the key directions, oftentimes is a lot easier said than done. But these are some really interesting things that have been happening over this last year or so. Alumni engagement has been a real focus for the college. A lot of times, if I'm attending a conference or if I'm in Chicago, I'll try to piggyback alumni visits, engagement with previous graduates, not only to kind of build those relationships, but also to keep them connected to the work that we're doing and remind them of, the story of Lewis and Clark, and that they are always going to be part of that. So one of the really interesting things is on our Alumni Association membership and giving has increased 8% on a goal of 20% for this year. So we're doing really good work in terms of getting to that goal of trying to continue to engage alum more so than we have in the past. We've also started the work of beginning a capital campaign for the college. This is going to be centered around our main complex, which I'll talk about at the end of the presentation today. But also it's going to be grounded across the 4 key directions. So how do we continue to build partnership and inspire investment in our key directions so that for generations to come, the college is really in a position to continue to invest in programs, enrollment strategy, advising strategy, retention strategy, culture strategy, and of course, probably the most important one coming next is the technology strategy, because without keeping up with technology, we essentially aren't keeping up. One of the really awesome things that's happened in this key direction too is this KD Cup that we've created, which really allows students, faculty, staff to sort of compete together in a lot of fun and exciting things that we have on campus. So we have a lot of team appreciation work. We have a BlazerCon initiative coming up. We do, lots of opportunities during the course of the year where we bring team members together. On a monthly basis, we host an all-team meeting, which is every second Tuesday of the month, right before our board meetings. We always get really good participation in those meetings, and that's an opportunity not only to connect the team, but also to hear of all the good things that are happening across the campus and to remind everybody that everybody's got a hand in the good work that we're doing. So that's always exciting. One of the things we did about 2 years ago was we started a culture survey, which is really helping us measure not just what's working. I mean, we oftentimes focus on just the pluses, but, where are those vulnerabilities in our culture? Where are those things that we really need to work on as a leadership team and as a broader team? And so fortunately here, year over year, we've seen positive increases across a number of metrics that we measure on an annual basis. Everything from, relationships between departments, belonging on campus, in the sense that, do I feel that I have a voice on this campus to help move things forward? Or do I feel that, hey, I'm not at that upper level, so I really don't know if my idea is going to matter? And we continue to see improvement across those sorts of metrics where people feel that they have a seat at the table. And as I always tell people, listen, everybody has an invitation at the table. It's up to them. I mean, at some point, it's gotta be up to that person to show up and sit in that seat and engage at the level that they want to engage in. And we feel that sort of transparent and invitational culture has really been a powerful tool for us to remind people that, hey, you're part of this team, and we want you to be contributing just like everyone else. And then, of course, just kind of a one that's been put in place as kind of a response to some of the needs of team members is just being able to share information in a more transparent way. So we've put in place messaging boards and monitors across campus. This allows team members to stay tuned into what's happening and really to help them sort of, kind of prioritize in terms of what they want to be involved in. I'm going to move into KD4 here, which is, this is one of those nebulous ones, but I alluded to this already, the data-driven decisions. About 3 years ago, we really started to kind of dig into the data. We really wanted to understand where the vulnerabilities were, not only in the enrollment side, but on the financial side. As I said before, it's kind of an emotional roller coaster being in education. It always has been. I mean, from a financial perspective, the way we look at it is we've got three sources of revenue that come in. It's the state, which, I think as we all can agree is a bit turbulent, right? We don't know what's happening at the state level. I mean, there's a huge budget gap. I mean, we feel confident that we'll continue to find support at the state level, likely will be flat, but we have a number of revenue sources that come from the state, including corporate property tax and equalization funding line. Those have seen significant decreases over the last couple of years. As a matter of fact, last year the college took, and Mary can fact check me on this one, probably a little under $4 million hit that we had to absorb and find some ways to make that up. Fortunately, having built some reserves, we were able to do that. So ultimately bringing this back to data and data-driven decisions is those are data points and those are realities that we have to be able to embrace and say, okay, what do our revenue projections look like over the next 5 years? If we're trying to grow enrollment 2 to 3% a year over year, what does that mean in terms of revenue? That second revenue source is tuition and fees. Fortunately, for the last 3 years, we've seen some good increases there, and we feel looking at things like competency-based education, blend flex, which is students can come into a program and they can pivot between face-to-face or they can pivot over to an online sort of platform, and they can move based on their needs. That flexibility is allowing us to become more accessible to students, therefore hopefully driving up enrollments and making us more attractive. And then, of course, that third piece, which involves all of us on this call, is the local tax base. Everybody on this call makes an investment on an annual basis into the livelihood and support of Lewis and Clark, and we take that support very seriously. So across, whether it's the state, local tuition and fees, or local taxes, I mean, those are three revenue streams that we have to continue to balance year in and year out. The data helps us manage that in terms of what we project to happen and what we feel won't happen. And so what are some things we need to be doing from an internal perspective that allows us to be more responsive to the environment rather than reactionary to the environment? And again, I mentioned this at the beginning of the presentation, but this is the link here, and you all can get a copy of these slides. You can click that link and it'll take you to the dashboard website where you can dig and you can explore what's happening at Lewis and Clark from a data point of view. And so hopefully if anybody's interested, you'll see that as a value. A couple of other things is IT governance. Obviously, in moving forward in education, we continue to want to control our costs. We want to continue to make sure that our investment is always coming back to making sure we're supporting that remarkable student experience that we talk about on a regular basis here. But we've created some new policies and practices as part of this key direction to really ground us in a little bit more focus around what we purchase, how it supports departments, how it supports the broader strategy of information technology. Probably about 2 years ago, we did I don't know, I kind of call it the technology audit on campus, and brought in a couple of consultants who did a phenomenal job. And basically, we came up with a plan to kind of revitalize IT, hired Ron Wall, who's been amazing. Ron has been a longtime team member at Lewis and Clark. He's also a member of our executive team, and he's really helped kind of pull all of this together. And so you can see here some of the good work happening around IT governance. Probably one of the big pieces that we've really kind of put our sort of arms around is cybersecurity. As you may remember, several years ago, we had a cyber incident which shut us down for some time, and I can just say that we learned a heck of a lot from that experience in terms of where our vulnerabilities were, but also some of the opportunities we had internally. And so we feel very confident in that support and what we've created going forward. A couple of other things here: asset management, just making sure that what we're investing in makes sense. Ron has done an absolute stellar job in helping us sort of reduce contract costs across the campus, and actually eliminate redundancy. So if I'm working with John who does A, and then Lori that does B, and Mary that does C, but essentially you're all doing the same thing, I might look at a way to consolidate those contracts, to be able to then leverage those savings into other areas of the campus that we need. And then a couple of other things here, which you can take a look at as well. And let me see, going to this as well on the data governance side. And Ron is also, it's kind of hard for us normal folks to get excited about IT stuff. So Ron keeps us sort of fired up about it, and we're just doing some really cool things. One of the big goals is to digitize everything on campus, essentially go paperless. And so he had shared with me some of the good progress being made around that goal this year. Manuals, paper processes. This is also going to help enrollment, budget development, payment requests. Looking at ways in which we can sort of move in a more streamlined way, approval processes. That's what our JOT form and Assure sign sort of refers to. And then keeping consistent, for example, when it comes to enrollment, what do we mean by a non-traditional student? What do we mean by a traditional student? What do we mean by retention? So having definitions on our campus that everybody agrees to and understands. So if I'm talking to a cohort of partners or stakeholders, we're all kind of understanding what it is we're talking about from the same point of view. And then probably one of the most exciting things, and it's been a long time in the making, and there's been a lot of work done behind the scenes. Some of you on this call, Chairman Wirtz, the boss of this place, right, has been amazing. Just the advocacy. We had to do some work this last year to really accelerate the timeline on this project. I mean, we were looking at an emergency project turning into an 8 to 9 year project. It now looks like this project should be done in 6 years, maybe a little less than that. But we just had the board approve yesterday the contract to engage a group that's going to help with our roofing bids. That's going to be done. That's got to be done by July. So that the Capital Development Board can now move in a more accelerated way to start with the project itself. And so really excited for this, not only for the college, but for the community. The main complex is really the heart of our campus. It dates back, obviously, to 1800s, 1868, I think was the last sort of time. Not the last time it was sort of renovated or fixed up, but it dates back, many, many, many years. And so naturally it is in need of some TLC. And then deferred maintenance. One of the priorities the exec team and the board has really taken and kind of put our arms around is deferred maintenance. So really essentially eliminating all the current deferred maintenance. And so the board has been gracious enough to approve our it's PHS money, which is public health and safety dollars that we get, that we qualify for. That's going to allow us to take care of roofs, to take care of, other vulnerabilities across our facilities. And then we're looking at a long-term plan of really thinking about having, additional individuals on our campus who help us from a long game perspective manage our facilities in a way that allow us to avoid really, in the traditional sense of the word, deferred maintenance. So we're proactive with our maintenance and trying to keep up with it as best we can, especially being on a campus that is historic, that is, I would argue, the most beautiful campus in the country. But with that comes a lot of, additional work behind the scenes to make sure that we keep it at a level that is that we can be proud of. So, and one other thing, Lori asked me to make sure I mentioned this. We do have the sign out on Godfrey Road is now working again. So we're back in business, right? That's been out for a while due to some technology issues. Believe it or not, the technology in that sign had been outdated. So we had to do a lot of work behind the scenes and find a vendor who could come in and, kind of implement something new that's going to allow us to have that sign working for years to come. And it's kind of a software sort of updated thing now. So it works a little bit better. So there are 1,000 other things I can talk about with Lewis and Clark. As you know, we have an amazing team. We have all of you included in this, an amazing community. We couldn't do it without really the partnership that I think we all have, whether it's formally or informally. We're really focused at Lewis and Clark, I'll end with this, on making sure Lewis and Clark is here for generations to come. We have a lot of opportunity in front of us in terms of program development, program enhancement. And as I talk a lot about rethinking and strengthening the agility within our own programs and practices, but also in how we're redefining access to Lewis and Clark. Because students are truly, and I mean this in every sense of the word, as I'm out in the community and I've attended some of our local school board meetings and I've met with students at those meetings, there is an expectation that we offer things in different ways. And I'm really proud to say that we have a faculty with an open mind here that is really experimenting more than I'm seeing in any other community college. We have a staff and support team that is leaning into this work in ways that really make me proud and really keep me fired up as a president. And of course, our leadership group, including a few of them are on the call today, Lori, Dr. Artis, and Mary, just phenomenal. They get it, and they know that the reason we're here are for our students. And we ask ourselves that question every day. If we make this decision, ladies and gentlemen, how is it going to impact the student experience? And if the answer is it will impact that student experience in a positive way, there is a higher likelihood that that decision is being made than, hey, let's just put this off till next time. So with that being said, one other announcement, Stand at Trailblazer Nation, where you'll get a much more comprehensive update on the specific goals that our key directions have set and the outcomes that they have achieved during this year. In addition to that, following that, everybody's welcome to stay. We're going to have our first annual AI mini summit where we're going to have a panel of faculty and staff, some experts from the field, really talking about best practices in AI as it relates to education, but also as it relates to just the general existence of us as human beings. Is what does AI mean and how do we learn to leverage the tool of AI in ways that allow our work to become more productive and allow ourselves to become more aligned with really where AI could help us go. So with that being said, thank you. There's my thank you. And again, if you have questions or concerns or ideas or anything, drT@lc.edu. If you send it to EDUC, it will get rejected. So make sure you drop the U and just add it to it's EDU. Sorry about that. But again, questions, anything I can answer, I'm happy to do so. And I think I've left enough time here. So I'm going to stop sharing and just kind of leave the last 20 minutes here for some Q&A. So. I know I fleshed through a lot. So yeah, I know that's a lot, but I try to keep it as focused as I could. Believe me.
Well, I'll ask you a couple things if you don't mind, without getting into the weeds. Your main campus, core campus upgrade was initially, I think, around 35 million, but it's been delayed. Well, that's where I'm going with this. Have all the delays added to it? Has anybody put a number to it?
Well, the original, actually, well, I mean, and this, the prospecting of the main complex renovation started a little bit before I got here. Then it stalled and then got here and, with the help of individuals like Representative Ellick, Dwight, many of you on this call, there was a lot of hustling and pushing and work done behind the scenes to get legislative leaders to kind of move the needle on it. When we got all that approved, and correct me, Lori, on this, because I've got Lori leading this now as kind of the point person, is about a $42 million construction budget, but a total budget of $50 million. One of the reasons we've been pushing really hard, and I mean, I'll be frank, I mean, I've been pretty vocal about this. It was really frustrating over the last couple of years to have this approved as an emergency project. And it was. We framed it in a way that allowed us to get the approval because it really was emergency. We had, I mean, this is a really old building. It's I mean, we've had concerns shared with us for a while now around that. And then to say, okay, well, it's an emergency. We'll probably get it done in about 8 years. And it's like, that can't happen. So there have been visits. I mean, I've been down to the Capital Development Board in person several times. We've had follow-ups with our legislators, and some of our deputy governors have been involved. We got word late last year that, okay, we're going to be able to unbake some of this timeline and accelerate things. But there were some caveats. We had to get the roofs done. We have to get everybody out of that building sooner. And so we've done our part, and the board has been very supportive of that. But the reason too, John, to your point, is we don't want to get stuck in a place where this kept dragging on and those costs kept going on. The thing is that I mean, quite frankly, this is a scary thing, and it's actually kind of an embarrassing thing to say in my position is I don't know where those costs are going to land, because I don't know what supply chains are going to look like next year or the year after. I don't know where the price of steel is going to go, right? I don't know I don't know what these bids are going to look like when they finally start coming in. So we're trying to manage this in a way that allows us to keep that as tight as possible, and making sure that the design and the renovation is not, I'm not going to say we're going the cheapest way, but we're not putting in the Bulgarian marble and we're economical in this, and we want to create something that is reflective of the future of Lewis and Clark, but also respectful and what's the right word I'm looking for? And just conscious of the cost, So yeah, I mean,
yeah, and Ken, if I can just add, I mean,
yeah,
to answer your question, John, the budget's always been the budget. And as Dwight will tell you, that's been the direction of the board. The budget is 50 million. It's 37.5 from the state,
yeah,
and 12.5 locally from through Lewis and Clark. And so what has changed is, we have 5 buildings in that main complex. We've had to change the scope. So
yeah.
where we're at right now, we've had to remove 2 entire buildings out of that project. So this project is now just renovating Caldwell, Baldwin, and Fogues. So Reed and Wade will have to wait. So that's just where we are.
Yeah.
Since it was announced in 2019. So and here we are.
Emergency. Okay.
Yeah, and the library did get a little bit of a renovation thanks to a Christmas disaster several years ago. So that also helped us pivot a little bit.
Little water leak. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yes. Yeah. So, but yeah. So we're excited, and I think once things really get rolling there, we'll probably host a couple of community forums to show some drawings and just kind of get people fired up. And maybe we can come back here, and myself or Dr. Artis could certainly present an update on, where we are with the main complex, because that is I think something that is symbolic of our area, and the community is I think would be interested in kind of how that's moving along. So
Very good.
Any other questions?
Something earlier. Yeah, you
Yep.
mentioned something earlier about early child care development.
Yep.
Is that to develop employees into that field or
Yeah. So we have a program now, and that program is obviously a very high need program, high demand program. And
very much so.
So we are creating a competency-based education pathway in that program. We're the first in the state to do so. It will allow a lot more agility to access and for students to work through that program in perhaps a faster pace. We're pretty excited about it, actually, and our faculty member there, John, who's newer to the campus, is just kind of wrapped his arms around it, and he is really excited about really the prospective opportunities that'll create, not only for enrollment, but for individuals really interested to get into that career. So, and we plan to, and that will roll out in the fall. I mean, obviously I say roll out, it's also pending Higher Learning Commission approval, which I have on good, I have good knowledge that will be approved in a timely fashion, just because of the important nature of that program.
Well, that's good to know, because there's a place right down the road from you on Godfrey Road that is needing employees. So
yes, yep,
that'd be great.
Yep.
Does anybody have any other questions?
Any
Okay.
objections? Any objections? I mean, any of those?
Dr. T, I excellent. I do. I mean, a lot of positive things going on campuses. You kind of went through. I mean, the programs that you have going on, the alumni engagement that's growing. I mean, just overall culture, just a lot of positivity going on. My question is on the enrollment. Great numbers on the enrollment side. Is this coming from? I mean, is a driver the high schools or non-traditional students or both? What's the driver of that increase? Because we're hearing higher education. It's a challenge for a lot of these colleges and universities.
Yeah. So we have put a lot of effort on strengthening our partnerships with local high schools. And so let's look at it this way. So yes, dual credit helps us a lot. What we're working on is concurrent enrollment. So concurrent enrollment is defined as a high school student taking a college course on our campus with our faculty. Dual credit is typically defined as a high school student taking a college course at their high school with their high school instructor. So what we've tried to do strategically is find a better balance there. The reason why is this. About a quarter of our dual credit students will typically finish at Lewis and Clark. Over 50% of our concurrent enrollment students will finish at Lewis and Clark. And so this is also a retention strategy for us. And the other thing, quite frankly, has been the flexibility that we're embedding across our programs. I mean, students like that. I mean, I was at a board meeting at Bunker Hill a couple of months ago, and a couple of the student trustees there, when I was talking about CBE, and they're like, can I move into that now? Because that is what I need. And I know my friends that are juniors and sophomores are really looking at, do I really have to go to college for 2 years or 4 years? So it's really creating that culture of access in a different way. And I'm comfortable saying this, one of the biggest barriers to those sorts of moves is faculty. Faculty will get in the way. Here, I'm really proud to say we have a really open-minded faculty. I mean, we're moving in directions. We have this new teaching and engagement model that was implemented years ago that is really allowing faculty to experiment a bit in how they approach teaching and how they engage with their students. And quite frankly, there's a lot of risk in a lot that we're doing, but we're beginning to see the outcomes as being the way that we felt we'd see them. I mean, students are demanding new things in how they get into our programs. And then also, I think the experience that we create for our students, Rob, is, it's at every level. I mean, and it's continuing to try to reinforce that, so whether you're a coach, I mean, this is another thing, I didn't talk about this and I meant to, but it's a whole nother topic, is athletics. We completely revamped athletics, hired full-time coaches. It took some time to, reposition resources and make that investment. But this is the thing, the coaches are now not just recruiting for athletics, the expectation is they recruit for Lewis and Clark. And so just creating that culture where the work that we all do, we're, an extension of that as we're all recruiting. And what we've seen, I didn't even share it, but the fundraising that's happening in athletics, they've raised over $250,000 in a little over a year, locally and regionally. That's going into offsetting scholarships, supporting operations in athletics. Our coaches are beginning to truly build a culture, not just of camaraderie on their teams, but engagement across campus. So there's a lot of things that I didn't even get to that all link into what's influencing enrollment. I mean, when a student thinks of Lewis and Clark, we want them to think of, I'm going to have a remarkable experience there. I'm going to have the support and just the flexibility that I need to do amazing things in my life. And then, oh, by the way, when I finish, they still have my back kind of attitude. So it's not like, hey, we really need you because we need your tuition, and then good luck. But you're part of this family. And I mean, that might sound a little cheesy, but that's really what we try to do. And it's exciting. I mean, it's exciting. And so, yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, Ken, we're going to end this with one more question that's in the chat box, and that is, what is BlazerCon? Can you talk about that a little bit?
You want me to take a stab
Yeah.
at that, Ken?
Go ahead. 'Cause
There
we
you go,
had,
Lori.
Well,
yeah,
you know, we got an update yesterday, and luckily I have my
That was
notes in
exciting.
front of me. So I will say,
Perfect.
you should come out. We're going to have a competition on campus where you get to pick. We're going to vote on what Ken's costume is going to be for BlazerCon. So I'm just kidding. So BlazerCon is actually an event that was bore out of our KD3 initiatives. You know, we're trying to obviously engage our internal stakeholders, but a way to engage more with the community. And Melissa, I'll get you in touch with Jared Smilak in our marketing and PR department. This was really his brainchild. I just love it. You know, if a team member has an idea, they can bring it forward. And essentially what it is, it's a comic and pop culture convention. You're familiar with Comic-Con and, you know, all the cons that take part all over America. So we so far have 50 vendors who have applied. We're going to have food trucks. Costumes are encouraged and, you know, welcomed. We've got, it's designed for everyone, all ages. It's going to be April 12th from 1 to 8 p.m. in Riverbend Arena. And I know we're promoting it on social media really now, trying to gear up the interest of vendors to make it an awesome experience for those who attend. But I know we've got more promotions planned. And Melissa, feel free to reach out to me and I'll connect you with Jared if you have an interest in any more than I've been able to provide on that. So
yeah, exciting stuff. Yeah.
yeah, so start planning your costume, John.
Yeah.
I can help you with that.
I'll bet you could. All right. Well, we really appreciate you being on here, Dr. T, and
Always a
Lori
pleasure.
and Mary and everybody, and Dwight, your boss, everybody
Yeah.
for getting on today. Our next update is scheduled for the 19th of March at noon, and I have not booked our guest speaker yet, but be looking for information on that. And then in April, our update will be on Illinois government, April 16th, and we've got a double whammy here. We've got Senator Erica Harris along with Representative Amy Ellick that'll both be on this call. So again, April 16th at noon or March 19th at noon, TBD. So I appreciate you all taking time out of your day to have lunch
Thank
with
you.
us. And with that, we're going to finish. We're going to give you back 5 minutes of your life.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you all. Take care. Good
Thanks.
seeing
Bye.
you. See
Good
some of you
seeing you.
tomorrow.